everyone, it is our first episode of the port series for this Carnival Pride June 22 Norwegian Fjords cruise. So over the last couple of weeks, we've looked at what the ship is like, what the features and amenities are on board, but also how to get to the ship, how to get from Heathrow and Gatwick, how to get around in the UK, and some practicalities such as currency and bits and pieces like that. Today, we're going to cover the first port on this 9-night cruise through the Norwegian Fjords, and that port is Stavanger. So, the city of Stavanger, we arrive at 7 a.m. On a Sunday, and we will stay there until 4 p.m, so a good amount of time to explore the city. Now, the cruise terminal in Stavanger is pretty central. It's bang smack in the middle of the city centre, so two large ships can fit in this terminal, and you can get out of the ship and walk straight into the action. So there's no need for public transport or anything like that. It's really, really convenient. So let's start with some facts about Stavanger, shall we? So Stavanger is obviously a Norwegian city. It's the fourth largest city in Norway with a population of 122,000. Between 872 and 900 AD, this was the site of the Battle of Fjord, which took place as a pivotal conflict in the history of Norway, as this is what led to the unification of Norway. Prior to this battle, Norway was actually lots of different territories, ruled differently by different clans and different island groupings. But after this battle, King Harald declared himself king of all Norway. And in commemoration of this in 1983, there was a great sculpture built called the Sverd, which is the swords in the rock. And you can see this in the picture right now. As you can see, this has 3 swords that have been sculpted and have become a big tourist attraction, so make sure you go and check it out while you're there. Stavanger has officially been a city since 1125 and is now a big market town, and it's also an international university city where many students from across the world come to study. Stavanger has the largest collection of wooden houses in Northern Europe, with over 8,000 houses here made of wood. Now, all I can think of is the 3 little pigs, I don't know about you. Stavanger is the oil capital of Norway, and since 1963, Norway has held sovereignty over the continental shelf of oil in the North Sea. In 2008, Stavanger was nominated and won the title of European Capital of Culture. They put a lot of effort into winning this title, and it included making the area more beautiful, adding more sculpture, art, and really focusing on making themselves stand out. The local sports team here in Stavanger is Viking FK. They're a football team, or soccer to the Americans, and they are the 3rd most successful club in Norway's history. Next, we're going to talk about food. I love food. I cruise for food, not just on the ship, but in the ports, and I love to go and eat in places where the locals eat. One thing I've always done, as you've probably seen in some of my previous videos, is if I'm going to a port, I like to look up what is good to eat there, and I go to TripAdvisor and find places that are the best for that thing. For example, when I was in Amsterdam, I wanted to try some of those famous Dutch waffles and pancakes. So I was like, where can I find the best Dutch pancakes? Google it, find the answer, and then go there. Don't just go to the first place you see, because those are tourist traps and they probably won't be the best quality or the most authentic. So if you don't want to do all the research, that's what I'm here for. So let's talk about food options in Stavanger. What I'm going to do for each port is actually give you a budget option, a mid-range option, and a high-end option. So these are the restaurants and cafes in each port that I recommend no matter the budget. So let's start with the budget option. Here, it's a place called Hverdagsskott. Do not tell me off if my accent is terrible on this one, but Hverdagsskott is a traditional Norwegian cafe. There are sandwiches and small plates, including brunch, smoothies, and such things. Famous in Norway for their very dark rye breads and whole grain. They don't really have white bread very much. And also they are famous for things like salmon and for other fish. Lots and lots of fish and potatoes. Yum, yum, yum. Breakfast in Norway is often actually just some brown rye bread with some brunost, which is a local Norwegian cheese. It's a very brown cheese, and it's actually tasty of nuts and caramel. It's very, very delicious. but it is an acquired taste. I would recommend trying so. So yeah, your budget option is there. It's a Fjord. I will put the links in the description if you want to check out their pages and have a look at the menus. I love a good menu search myself. What about mid-range options for if you're wanting dinner rather than just a snack? Well, I recommend Egg and Do. This is a lovely Norwegian restaurant. They have fuller meals for bigger plates if you're wanting to try something such as the famous herring or gravlax. So gravlax is a salmon dish, very, very famous in Norway, huge local specialty. So try this if you wish. This place is a little bit more pricey because it's a proper sit-down restaurant. Do be aware as well that Norway in general is more expensive than most of Europe. Part of this is because Norway is not in the European Union, and so they don't get a lot of cheaper rates when it comes to the shared market in Europe, so they do have things at a bit of a premium. Do be prepared, some of the prices may be more than you were willing to pay. So, what about those high-end fancy diners who like Michelin stars? Well, there is a 2 Michelin star chef here in Stavanger who owns an amazing restaurant called Rina. His name is Sven Erik Rina, and he offers a menu of Scandinavian staple dishes with a high-end haute cuisine style. And so his tasting menu, which you can go and explore, costs 2,900 krona, which is approximately, looking at today's date, $323 per person. So when I say high-end, I mean it. But if you're going to have one special meal on this cruise at a port, this is the one to go to. Rina is absolutely amazing and gets great reviews from all types of foodies all across the world. So what about sights and activities to do here in Stavanger? One thing to note, as I've mentioned in a couple of previous videos, is we are arriving on this cruise into Stavanger on a Sunday. In Norway, nothing really opens on a Sunday. It is the day that everyone stays at home and rests. You will find people going out to the parks and things like that, but shops will not be open. Cafes and restaurants will, and you will find the occasional sort of corner store and supermarket and grocers being open, but generally most things completely shut down on a Sunday. So if you're thinking about doing shopping on this cruise, save it for Bergen later in the cruise, because we're going to another big city, Bergen, later on, and I would recommend doing your shopping there. In Stavanger, save the money and spend it on things like food and on souvenirs from tourist attractions if you find them. So let's talk about those tourist attractions. First of all, and it doesn't sound exciting, but it is absolutely brilliant, it's the Stavanger Oil Museum. It's an interesting exploration into the world of the Norwegian oil industry, and you get to see some of the submarines, some of the drilling equipment, and even a mock oil platform. If you've ever been curious as to how they get the oil, this will answer your questions, and it's just a good insight into how the people of Stavanger have lived. They've gone, for the last 50 so years, being part of the oil industry. It's where they get their money, it's how they make their living, so it's an important part of their culture. So, I said the oil museum doesn't sound interesting. What about the Canning Museum? I know, you can barely hold your excitement, but the Canning Museum is actually pretty cool. It's very unique, and it's famous for, obviously, canning. So, Norway is famous for canning their food, fish, specifically, and lots of other things preserved in cans. So this canning museum, you can go and have a look and look at the industry as a whole, where it started, how it works, and what it's like now. Now the next site I would recommend is Gamla Stavanger. So this is Norwegian for Old Stavanger, basically. So it's the old town here in Stavanger. I've said Stavanger too many times now. It's where you'll find sort of old winding streets of the wooden houses I mentioned earlier. Beautiful place that is a preserved slice of Norwegian culture for you to explore. But do be aware that these houses are private residences, so when you're walking past, do make sure you are courteous and polite. These are people's homes. You wouldn't want people sort of taking lots of photos of your house and looking in your windows. So yeah, be admiring of the beautiful houses, but remember people do live there. This is their family home. So the next place is Preikestolen, which is the Pulpit Rock. You may have heard of the Pulpit Rock because it is one of the biggest tourist attractions here in Stavanger. So this is a huge jutting out piece of rock which you can hike up, or you can see it sailing around the fjord. So the options you have here are sort of tours and mini cruises around the Fjord, where you can actually get in a boat and sail around the Pulpit Rock and look up at it. This is a great view. It does take a while though. I believe to do the full sort of tour of the Lyse Fjord takes a couple of hours, but you do get some great photos, and it's a brilliant opportunity to do. Obviously, sailing the fjords on a much smaller ship than the Carnival Pride, so that'll be a good little option for you. Or if you are really adventurous and you do like a bit of activity, you can actually hike up the Pulpit Rock and actually get views from the top. Great photos and a great experience to say that you've done it. I mentioned earlier the photo opportunity of the Three Swords. Lots of people will go and visit this just to take their photo, and it's something that you should definitely try and do. Definitely one for the photo album. Sculptures. As I mentioned earlier, this city was named the Centre of Culture. Brilliant award, and it meant that they had a lot of artwork here. So there are sculptures by Anthony Gormley on both Solar Beach and throughout the city centre. Lots of different sculptures with lots of different inspiration all about Norway and its culture. So great places to find some great modern art if you're interested in that side of things. And finally, when we're talking about art, the Rogaland Kunstmuseum. No, I didn't just swear. Kunstmuseum is Norwegian for art museum. So Kunst is art, and they have a permanent exhibit here on Norwegian artists, as well as a rotating exhibit that changes every sort of couple of months. And while we're there, it's going to be the collection of a very famous art collector in Norway called Halvdan Heisten. Now, some of us have some onboard credit on this cruise because of the fact that we've had to cancel cruises during the pandemic, and this sort of onboard credit gets mounted up. Others of us are just wanting to book excursions because they are convenient. Whether you're buying them because they're convenient or because you've got the money to spend on board, Carnival have some great excursions here. But as always, they are going to be more expensive than going on your own or booking privately. With that in mind, I'm going to go over just a few of the Carnival excursions that you can book today. First of all, there's Panoramic Stavanger. This is $69.99 in US dollars. This is per person, and that's a coach tour around the city. For those who aren't quite mobile or just like to have a nice relax, this is a motor coach that will take you around all the major sites so that you can take some photos, and there may be options to get off the bus and take some photos outside as well. This is great if you are of an older generation, your mobility is low, or you just want a nice relaxing drive. Another option is the Stavanger City Highlights. This is $99.99 US dollars. Part bus tour, part on foot walking tour, and gives you a sample of the main sites of Stavanger. For $109.99, you can cruise along the Lyse Fjord. As I mentioned earlier, you can go and visit the Pulpit Rock via a boat. This is a close-up sailing cruise throughout the Lyse Fjord, and you get a great view of Pulpit Rock as well as some of the other sites, and it's fully narrated with an audio guide who will talk to you and answer any questions you have. Finally, if you're wanting something a bit different, for $134.99 on the pricier side, there's the Utztein Medieval Monastery and Recital. So you can visit a 12th century monastery that's still used today and listen to an actual music recital there. Great if you're interested in history, religion, or just wanting something a little bit different than sightseeing. So in this section, I'm going to cover what I recommend you do for people who like a light activity, people who like a heavy activity, and just other things as well. So these are my recommendations on what to do on your day here in Stavanger. First of all, Stavanger do offer a hop-on, hop-off bus tour. I'm a big fan of these. If you're only in a place for a day, like you do on a cruise, these are great options to see lots of things in a very short amount of time without getting lost or without having to pay for a guide. You plug your headphones in, you get all of the information straight into your ear in lots of different languages. Really convenient. And then if there's somewhere that you like, you can get off and go and explore it and just get back on the bus when you want. Here in Stavanger, the hop-on, hop-off bus tour is 315 Norwegian kroner, which is about $35. This is per person, and it will last approximately an hour and 45 minutes for the entire trip, if you stay on the whole way round. At the moment, at time of recording, this service is currently suspended due to the pandemic, but hopefully by the time we're sailing in June, this will have changed, as Norway have now announced all of the ending of their restrictions. So for those who are interested in the cultural side and the food side, as I said, there are no shops open during our visit, so do take this time to view the sites and take photos. Enjoy the culture, try something new, try something local, go to a cafe, have something They are lovely in Norway. Everyone's so polite, and I would really recommend trying as many cakes and breads as you can. Bakery is everything in Scandinavia. If you're not a fish person, you want to try the baked goods. I certainly would recommend the cinnamon rolls. Yum. What about those of you who are fit and healthy and active and really want a challenge? Well, as I said earlier, you can hike up Pulpit Rock. It's a 4-hour round trip, so be prepared and make sure you have perfect walking shoes and any equipment you need, including probably bottles of water. It's 8 kilometers with a rise of 500 meters, and it's very, very steep. So it's recommended to only those who have experience hiking and know what they're in for. Because once you get going, you don't want to get halfway up and then give up. It would be really disappointing and it would ruin your trip. So make sure that this is something that you can do, and you will be paid off by the views. Absolutely stunning. For those of you on a budget who are just wanting to get off the ship and still enjoy the port without having to commit to anything expensive, and I'm certainly one of these people, I like to save money where I can. The great thing about Stavanger is the entire city is incredibly walkable, so there's no need for transport. You don't need a taxi, you don't need a car, you don't need anything. In fact, I would recommend against getting these things. Get some good shoes on, go for a walk, explore the city. It's beautiful and so easy to get around with. And remember, we're all carrying amazing photo devices called phones, so you can get some great photos with those without even needing a DSLR camera. So go out, get some memories. Finally, I'm going to end this episode with some practical tips about Stavanger and just Norway in general. As I've mentioned before, card is king in Norway. Not many people really use cash. So although I would recommend getting some local currency, just in case, do just make sure you've got your credit or debit cards. Visa, MasterCard are all accepted everywhere, even vending machines. It's very, very easy to use your cards. One thing to be aware of, and this is a cultural thing that you should definitely be aware of, is when paying by credit card in Norway, it is very, very common to be asked for ID. So carry your passport and driving license, because when you pay by credit card, often you are asked to prove your identity. So that's something that's very uncommon in Europe, and I have never experienced this anywhere other than in Scandinavia or in airports, I suppose, where you have to show your boarding pass sometimes. But yeah, bring ID with you. Don't leave your passport and driving license in the safe in your cruise room. Make sure you have it on you at all times. Just keep it safe. ATMs here in Norway, they are not called ATMs, they are called mini bank. So if you're looking for an ATM and you want to draw out some cash, look for the signs that say mini bank, and this is what you will find. English is widely spoken in Norway. Most Norwegians start learning English very, very early, and they actually, a lot of the time, some of my Norwegian friends have no accent at all when speaking English, so I can't even tell that they're not native English speakers. Some of them are absolutely brilliant with their English, some less so, but most people will have a grasp of English enough to talk to you, so do not worry about any language barriers. The official language here is, though, Norwegian. And an interesting fact is most of the Scandinavian countries can understand each other's languages, even though they are different. Let's talk about practicalities of things like Wi-Fi. If you want Wi-Fi, you can actually get free Wi-Fi in Stavanger from both McDonald's and Burger King, which are both walkable from the cruise terminal. And in fact, on some days and on some ships, you can actually get access to this free Wi-Fi while still on board. They're that close to the ship. So do try, and you may be able to get that. This free Wi-Fi is completely unlocked, so you can access it from these places. But I would recommend, if you are going to go and sit in Burger King or McDonald's and use the free Wi-Fi, at least buy yourself something, even if it's just a drink, just to be polite. And finally, wear sensible shoes. This is the biggest hint for this whole cruise in general, is shoes, sensible walking shoes. A lot of the places we're going to go to, they're not paved. There's small villages, islands, things like that. And here in Stavanger, a lot of the streets are cobbled, and cobbled streets and high heels do not mix, ladies. So that was Stavanger. I hope you got some interesting information from here. If you have any questions about Stavanger, please do put it in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. Similarly, if you are in the Carnival Pride roll call on Facebook, I can answer your questions there. And if you have anything you want to discuss, please let me know. I'm always happy to help. And if you would like to help me, you can click like and subscribe to this video, as well as donating to my Ko-fi, which is down in the description. This is an option where you can just donate a few bucks to the support of the channel, and that's enough to buy me a coffee and keep me awake during these research sessions to make sure I'm giving you all the information that you need to have the dream cruise that you are waiting for. Next week, we will cover the next port, which is Skjolden, and cruising the Stavanger Fjord. And again, apologies for the poor accent. Thanks, guys. See you next week.